I never imagined the man I poured my heart into for 30 years could unravel me with a single sentence. 3 decades of shared mornings, of steaming coffee and quiet sacrifices, of stitching together a life from love's fragile threads. And yet, there he sat, his voice steady, his eyes cold, telling me we were too old for love. He said it so casually, as if my years of devotion were as disposable as the dishes I cleared from our table. "Just focus on cooking," he added, and in that moment, something inside me cracked, not loudly but deeply, like a fault line shifting beneath a silent earth. "Thank you for being here, for lending me your heart for a moment. It means more than words can carry. I'd love to know where you're joining me from. Please share in the comments. It's a small comfort to feel you out there, holding space for this story." That night, his words clung to me like damp cloth, heavy and suffocating. I sat across from him at our worn kitchen table, the stew I'd simmered for hours turning to ash in my mouth. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I just chewed, each bite a battle to keep my face still while my heart screamed. Maybe he was tired, I told myself. Maybe it was the weight of the day, not his heart speaking. But as I scrubbed the pots later, the clink of dishes drowning out my trembling breaths, I knew better. His words weren't a slip. They were a truth he'd been carrying, one I'd been too loyal to see. In bed, while he slept soundly beside me, I stared at the ceiling, tracing the shadows of our years together. I thought of the girl I was when we met, eyes bright with dreams of a love that would weather any storm. I thought of the floors I'd scrubbed until my knees ached, the meals I'd crafted with care, the nights I'd whispered courage into his ear when life pressed hard. 30 years of giving, of bending, of believing in us. And now, to be told love was a young woman's game, that my role was reduced to the kitchen. It wasn't just a wound. It was a theft of something sacred. My name doesn't matter. What matters is the weight of the life I've carried, the dreams I tucked away to build a home, a family, a partnership I thought was unbreakable. I married young, my heart full of hope, believing love was a vow that grew stronger with time. I cooked with intention, cleaned with purpose, stood by him through every stumble, asking only for kindness in return. But as my hair silvered and my hands grew worn, I began to notice the chill in his gaze, the way his words clipped short, the way I became a ghost in my own home. At first, I told myself it was normal. Men grow quiet with age, don't they? Life's burdens can dim even the warmest hearts. But when I reached for him, hoping to rekindle a spark, he'd pull away, his indifference sharper than any argument. I kept trying. More effort, warmer meals, a cleaner house, hoping he'd see me again. But I was fading, a shadow moving through routines. My love unnoticed, my presence unvalued. In the quiet of those nights, as he turned away in sleep, I began to wonder, had my sacrifices been nothing more than duties to him? Had my laughter, my tears, my loyalty become background noise? The pain of that truth isn't something you can tidy into words. It's a weight that presses your chest until you fear your heart might give way. Yet every morning I rose. I brewed the coffee, slipped on my robe, and moved through the motions, asking myself if this was the reward for 30 years of devotion. To be told love had an expiration date, that my worth was now measured in meals served and floors swept. But beneath that ache, something else stirred. A spark of defiance, small but fierce, whispering that this was not my ending. One evening, not unlike the countless others, I set the table with care, hoping a perfect meal might soften the man I once knew. I leaned close, my voice barely above a whisper, and said I missed us, the way we used to laugh, the way love felt alive. His response was a scoff, a cold curl of his lips. "Romance is for the young," he said. "We're too old for that. Just focus on cooking." The words landed like a slap, sharp and final, stealing the air from the room. I nodded, my eyes on my plate, my heart pounding so loud I thought he might hear it. But he ate on, oblivious, as if he hadn't just shattered the last piece of hope I'd been clinging to. That night, I didn't cry. I washed the dishes, the water masking the tremor in my hands. In bed, I lay awake, staring into the dark, asking how love could vanish so completely, how the man who once vowed to cherish me could reduce me to a servant. But in that darkness, I felt it, a flicker of resolve. This wasn't just about growing old. It was about respect, about dignity, about a woman who deserved more than to be dismissed. Weeks passed, his words a constant ache in my chest. I kept cooking, kept cleaning, kept silent. But silence has a way of growing loud, and mine was building into something unstoppable. One afternoon, sorting through old papers to quiet my mind, I found a folder tucked away, its edges worn but heavy with secrets. My hands shook as I opened it, revealing bank statements with unfamiliar numbers, flight receipts to Mexico, and a name beside his that wasn't mine. The room tilted. My breath caught, and I gripped the table to keep from falling. Every late night on his phone, every cold dismissal, every moment I'd excused as stress, it wasn't age. It was betrayal. I sat there, papers trembling in my hands, tears burning but refusing to fall. 30 years of loyalty, traded for lies, but in that moment, clarity cut through the pain. I wouldn't confront him with tears or rage. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing me break. Instead, I'd wait. I'd plan, and I'd let him face the silence he'd forced on me. A silence that would echo louder than any argument. I confided in a friend, my voice steady, but my heart raw. She listened, her eyes kind but fierce, and said something that changed me. You gave him your best years. If he chose betrayal, you have every right to choose yourself. Her words were a lifeline, pulling me back to the woman I'd forgotten I could be. I returned home with a fire in my chest, not of anger, but of purpose. I wouldn't beg for answers. I'd reclaim my worth. Calling a lawyer was terrifying, my hands shaking as I dialed. But with each word I spoke, each piece of evidence I shared, I felt stronger. This wasn't revenge, it was survival. The legal terms were heavy, the secrecy daunting, but every signed document loosened the chains I'd carried. This was about more than money. It was about dignity, about refusing to let 30 years of love be reduced to a lie. I moved through the house like an actress in a play he didn't know was ending. I cooked his meals, folded his clothes, smiled when he spoke, all while carrying a secret he'd never suspect. I watched him grow careless, humming to himself, believing his lies were safe. But I was no longer the woman he dismissed. I checked his laptop, my fingers steady as I typed his predictable password, and found it all. Hidden accounts, confirmed reservations, messages dripping with promises he hadn't made to me in years. Each discovery hurt, but it also hardened my resolve. I copied what I needed, stored it safely, and built my shield brick by brick. Every day became a countdown. While he planned his escape, I planned mine. Not to follow him, but to break free. I booked a ticket to Paris, not Mexico, a quiet act of rebellion that felt like breathing again. I cooked his meals with care, not out of love, but as a farewell he'd never see coming. He ate, unaware of the strength in my silence, the resolve in my steady hands. In my mind, I was already walking Parisian streets, tasting freedom he could never take. The morning he left, he wheeled his suitcase out, barely glancing at me, announcing he'd be back in a few days. I nodded, my smile a mask, and as his car disappeared, I felt the weight lift. I carried my own bag to the door, packed with clothes and courage, and paused to touch the letter I'd left on the mantel. It was simple, sharp, a mirror to his betrayal. You said romance was dead, but it only died in your hands. I'm choosing myself now. As the cab drove me to the airport, the air felt alive, carrying the promise of a new beginning. I wasn't running, I was reclaiming. At the gate, clutching my ticket, I felt the ache of endings, but also the thrill of starting over. The plane lifted, and with it, the chains of my past fell away. I closed my eyes, promising myself I'd never again let anyone make me small. In Paris, the streets hummed with life, bread baking, flowers blooming, and a freedom I hadn't known in years. I walked slowly, savoring every step, knowing he'd return to an empty house, a locked drawer, and a letter that would speak louder than I ever could. This wasn't revenge. It was rebirth. My heart, scarred but unbroken, was ready to love again. Not him, but myself. Thank you for walking this journey with me. Your presence is a gift, a reminder that no one is truly alone when they choose their truth. If this story touched you, please subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because even in the deepest betrayal, there's a path to rise, to reclaim, to begin again.